order. Can I get a roll call, please?
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Present.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Audio link for Supervisor Phillips.
District Supervisor Lopez.
Present.
District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Yuri Anderson for Wendy Askew.
District 5, Supervisor Adams. City of Carmel by the Sea.
Here.
City of Delray Oaks.
Present.
City of Gonzales.
Present.
City of Greenfield.
Here.
City of King City.
Present.
City of Marina.
Here.
City of Monterey.
Present.
City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of Salinas.
Here.
City of Sand City.
Here, alternate Blackwelder.
City of Seaside.
Here.
City of Soledad. City of Soledad.
Here.
Ambec.
Here.
Caltrans 5.
John Olenek here.
Monterey Bay Air Resources District. Monterey Regional Airport District. Monterey Salinas Transit.
Lisa Reinheimer for MST.
City of Watsonville. CSUMB.
Present.
Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Now will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on any item that is not on the agenda?
My name's Alan Tarp, representing the Newbert and Tarp families.
Please, Alan, go ahead.
I have a letter that I believe the board members received in their packet from my brother Brad, who's unavailable today. And we've been asked to read this letter for the record.
Please go ahead.
It's dated May 22nd, 2022. To all members of the board of directors, my name is Brad Tarp, a partner on property on West Market and New Street. Less than half of our property is being taken as a train layover for TAMC. We would like a timeline and answers concerning the length of time we are being subjected to close this deal. We have done everything asked by TAMC and have submitted a soils plan at great cost to us that the TAMC Council seems not to want to discuss. We have followed the guidelines of the Regional Water Quality Control Board and have yet to hear back from TAMC. We are in limbo as we do not have a recorded property line of the parcel. Therefore, selling the remaining parcel cannot be complete. This has lost us buyers that have made us offers to purchase this parcel. We cannot finalize the sale until you record the new boundary lines. It has been 4 years since I first mentioned this fact at a rail policy meeting. My comment was met with blank stares from board members. We continue paying all property taxes on the entire parcel. Yet we have no use of the remaining part due to the recorded boundaries, lack of recorded boundaries. We now have an incomplete fence, no barbed wire on top, no recorded deed as well. We have accumulated large costs for security services and fencing around our building and parcel, as well as enormous attorney fees. We accepted a final sales price several years ago, thinking the project sale was almost complete, as we were led to believe by TAMC. Since then, the commercial market has risen tremendously. Our last offer for the remaining parcel was over $19 a foot, but they've backed out because no recorded boundary, no deed, and having no timeline with TAMC. My grandfather, I should say our grandfather, William E. Salinas, started the first commercial fertilizer company in Salinas Valley on this property. It benefited many farmers and their families and his employees. His first concern were all families and taking care of customers. This is not how to honor the pioneer of the Salinas Valley. Sincerely, Brad Tarp. We would appreciate this being dealt with immediately. We've been dealing with this for way too long, and why TAMC is dragging their feet, we do not know.
Thank you, Alan. I see that our Chair Adams is now present, and I will hand it over to you, Chair Adams. I see that we may be still having some difficulty. Staff, can you connect with the public member who just spoke and set that up? Is there any other members of the public who'd like to speak on any item not on the agenda? Eloise, is there anyone online?
Vice Chair, I do not see anyone. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the board who would like to pull any items from the consent agenda? Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak on any of the consent agenda items? Eloise, do you see anyone online?
That's a negative, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Eloise. I see Chair Adams is now there. Chair, I will hand this over to you. We just finished asking board members and for public comment for consent agenda. It's ready to come back for action. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I appreciate so much. I just wanted to give you a little tryout to see how it feels. You did very, very well.
Thank you.
It wasn't that I had any problems over here, but thank you all so much for your patience. Continuing on with the meeting then, I believe that we'll need a roll call vote to approve the consent
Move
agenda.
approval.
Thank you.
Lopez seconds.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess that happens first. Could we have a roll call vote, please, Eloise?
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Alternate Link.
Aye.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez. District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
District 4, Alternate Anderson.
Yes.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Delray Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Aye.
City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City.
Aye.
City of Marina.
Aye.
City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City.
Yes.
City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And now we will call for item number 4, which is to receive a presentation on the Canyon Del Rey segment of the Fort Ord Regional Trail and the Greenway Project. And this will be presented by Mike Zeller.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Adams and members of the board. Let me 1 second to bring my screen up here. So again, good morning. I'm Mike Zeller. I'm the Director of Programming and Project Delivery for TAMC, and I'll be giving a status update on the first phase of the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway Project, the Canyon Del Rey segment. So just by way of a brief background, the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway was a vision that was brought forth by two CSUMB professors, Fred Watson and Scott Waltz, I'm sure you're all familiar with, to develop a regional multi-use ADA accessible trail throughout the Monterey Peninsula. It's envisioned the total project build out as a 28-mile multi-use trail that's safe, accessible, separated, alternative to cars. The idea is that the full length of the trail, you'd easily be able to see walkers and bikers out there, as well as families with strollers, members of our community with mobility challenges, that everybody would be able to get out and connect with the great open space areas, recreation, jobs, and schools that we have on the peninsula. The trail, as you can see, there's several different loops of the trail, and this is to enhance the different connections between the former Fort Ord, the Monterey Peninsula, and the Salinas Valley, and to be able to tie all these communities together with a recreational multi-use trail. Part of this is also to function as a habitat corridor. There's several parts of the trail, especially one with this first segment that we'll be discussing today, where there are undercrossings under state highways and roadway facilities that provide safe passage for wildlife to move through. And the trail itself is designed to be complementary to the built environment. So in a cohesive look and feel to the trail, so that when you're on the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway, that you know that you're on that trail, but also that it fits in with the landscape that it's built in. So it looks like it's part of the complementary to the environment. The full 28 miles of the project was environmentally cleared in March of 2020. So the full trail has received its state environmental clearance, and now we're moving forward with seeking out grant funding for individual segments of the trail to complete final design and then construction. So this first segment that's highlighted here through Delray Oaks, this is funded with a $10 million state active transportation program grant, as well as a small amount of state local partnership program funds, and then also leveraging some Measure X funds as well. We do have, as we've discussed, another segment running from Imgen to the Jerry Smith trailhead in the former Fort Ord that's been shortlisted for a federal lands access program grant. So we hope to have more information on that, securing that award later this fall. And we're also moving forward with submitting an active transportation program grant this cycle for another segment that connects with that flat program segment grant that would run from Imgen Road to California Avenue up to the schools in Marina. But today I'd like to focus just on this first segment along Canyon Del Rey. We have a lot of great updates that I'd like to be able to share. So this first segment, so it starts along North Fremont Street in Canyon Del Rey, runs along behind Safeway in Delray Oaks to Work Memorial Park. There is a segment along Angeles Way based on feedback from community members where there are no physical improvements, just wayfinding signage directing people to either ends of the trail. At the end of Angeles Way, there is already an existing trail at the Delray Park that we'll be upgrading to a paved pathway. So we'll be picking our trail back up there. As I mentioned, the underpass under 218 with the switchback and the frog pond to Carlton Drive, up Carlton to Plumas, and then along Plumas where the project would end at Delray Woods Elementary. And I'll go through each of these segments in more detail. But before getting to that, just like to talk a bit about the public outreach that we've done on this project. Going through the environmental review process, we did a significant amount of community meetings, workshops, and presentations to discuss different alignment options and alternatives, ultimately settling on the preferred alternative that was environmentally cleared. But then once we did receive funding for this segment, we did another round of public outreach that was specific to the Canyon Del Rey segment before launching into final design to, again, just reintroduce the project to the community and get some initial feedback before we started as our lead design consultant likes to say, before we started baking the cake and getting everything decorated. So we did a number of focus group meetings with community members. We've done city council presentations to keep the community updated via the city council. We also did in-person COVID-safe site visits where we went out and met with specific neighborhoods as well as stakeholder groups to walk the alignment and to get feedback as we did that. We also held a virtual public workshop that made it accessible to all to attend, as well as we had an interactive project map where people were able to drop pins along the alignment and give us feedback that we were able to incorporate into the design. Throughout this process, we had received quite a bit of feedback. One piece of feedback that we had heard in particular was about rerouting the project along State Route 218. So we did an extensive review of that alternative and reconfirmed that the routing along State Route 218 was not necessarily a viable option. It was not a preferred alternative supported by Caltrans, that putting it along State Route 218 would result in larger impacts to the residences that abut 218. So some taking of property, there would be greater utility impacts as well as tree removal impacts versus the current alternative. And it would just be significantly more expensive. So it'd be a less safe option, less environmentally friendly, and more costly in the process as well than the current alternative. Despite all of that, there is a ballot initiative on the June 7th ballot that, if it were to pass, would restrict trails, bike and pedestrian or bike trails in Delray Oaks to State Route 218, General Jim Moore Boulevard, and South Boundary Road. So that would, the funding that we received for this project was specific to this alignment. So if that were to pass, it would have a significant impact on our ability to deliver this project and likely stop the project. But we have taken a lot of the feedback that we have heard from the community and made significant changes to the project to be able to keep the community updated for all of the great changes that we've been able to make. We have sent out community mailings, so physical mailers were sent out, as well as e-newsletters. And we also have a project website where all of the information that I'm sharing today will be included. So with that, I'd like to launch into some of the specifics on the trail segments. So this starting here is the first segment starting at North Fremont Boulevard and Canyon Del Rey. So this is linking up next to Laguna Grande Regional Park. You can also see that there's plans for future connections where the city of Monterey is planning a North Fremont gap closure project that would take the end of their North Fremont medium bike lane project at Casanova and bring it up towards our Fortag project. So those two would be linked. And then there are future plans to bring Fortag into Laguna Grande Regional Park as well. But for our project, we would have a protected trail crossing going across North Fremont. And essentially what that is that it separates the bike crossing and the pedestrian crossing and creates a larger bulb out at the corner, so that as cars would be turning, their sight line is looking more directly at the crossing. So it makes it safer so drivers can see if there's anybody in the crossings, but then it also gives a separated way for the bikes to move through versus the pedestrians. The pedestrians are set back a little bit further. We also have plans, as you can see on the overlay here, that going through Canyon Del Rey through this intersection towards the west starts as 2 lanes. And then if you're familiar with the area, there's quickly a merge lane as you cross through the intersection. What our project would do is create a larger bulb out here so that this lane here becomes a right only turning through. And then the inside lane is your through lane. And then if you needed to get into the Safeway parking lot, then this lane would still be available to turn in. So it clears up this movement here where it's not as confusing for people whether they're in the outside lane, whether they need to merge or turn into Safeway. It just provides the one through lane, makes it more clear and safer. And then we would also still continue with the right on red from Fremont onto Canyon Del Rey to help with the queuing issues. And the trail along this way would be a trail along the roadway. So here's an example of what that would potentially look like. So moving along, so this is behind Safeway in Delray Oaks at the Work Memorial Park. So the existing, as you can see, there's a haul road that goes into the garden center there. Our initial plans were to repurpose some of the haul road for the trail, so we can reuse that and limit our environmental impacts, and then move up the hillside around the garden center. So our current design, as you can see here, we have our proposing a seating plaza at the start of the trailhead here. We would have a planting of tree screens, so protect from the view shed from the back of Safeway and make you feel like you're in more of a environmental setting, natural setting. This gives us the opportunity to add new tree plantings as well. We'll have an additional seating plaza at the end of the walk up the gentle slope up the hillside. And then one of the consistent themes that we had heard throughout our public outreach was about safety on the trail. So at this section, there will also be access for city maintenance vehicles as well as police vehicles to gain access here. And this is just an example of what the seating nodes could potentially look like behind the Safeway. There's opportunities for educational and interpretive signage to be put up, as well as branding for the city to be able to put the city name on the wall or any other type of labeling that they would like. So moving along, the next section is behind the existing city tennis courts. As you can see here, our original design was to bring the trail along the tennis courts, and this pushed it up into the hillside here. So as you can see, there would be a need to put in large retaining walls to be able to bring the trail this way, as well as some impacts to tree removals as well. So our current design, what we had looked at is reorienting the existing tennis courts, which would actually provide us enough space that we would not need to go up into the hillside. We would not have the tree impacts. We would not need the large retaining walls, and we could keep the trail at the existing grade. And by doing that, by reorienting the tennis courts, resurfacing them, it actually ends up saving us money in doing that. So we're able to give the community upgraded tennis courts, provide a better experience on the trail, and it does save us money as well. So just again, here's what the current design looks like. As I mentioned, we get rid of the large retaining walls from going up in the hillside. By staying at the existing grade, we open up the sight lines coming through here, less tree removal. We're also able to refinish the existing staircase that goes up to the tennis courts, and brand new tennis courts with a $26,000 savings. Another benefit of bringing the trail down at grade is that we're able to integrate it better with the butterfly garden that's next to the tennis courts. And if you're familiar with this, this is a local community treasure where really grassroots effort to develop an area to have gardening, planting boxes, and be able to provide educational opportunities for students to come in and learn out about butterflies and different native plant species. Our original design was to come just next to the tennis courts and slot in between the tennis courts and the butterfly garden. But our current design, it's more integrated. So as you can see, the trail actually goes through the butterfly garden. We have space for the garden on either side, so an integrated trail. We're able to add in additional planters that are American with Disabilities Act accessible. More opportunities for seating nodes for people to come in and relax and recreate. Bike racks for people to ride their bikes up here and then park their bikes. And then again, the question of safety and security, we're able to put in a closed circuit TV camera. And then additional educational opportunities. We have stadium style seating up in the corner there where you'll be able to bring class students down to learn in this area. And then again, being able to put in additional trees. And here's one of our recent renderings. We have met with members from Sustainable Delray Oaks to get their feedback on this. So one of the things that we heard was kind of softening some of these lines, perhaps having ivy come up this wall, to, again, make it feel more like a natural setting, but this kind of gives you a sense of the idea of what this could potentially look like when it's completed. Along Angeles Way, as I mentioned, there's no physical improvements based on feedback from the community, except for wayfinding signage on either end. And then we pick back up at Delray Park, where we would have improvements to the existing dirt gravel trail that's out there, upgrading that to a paved trail. And we would also put in the yellow line is a new sidewalk that would connect from the trail up to City Hall. And then from there, crossing under State Route 218, we're proposing an undercrossing with a switchback at the Frog Pond Wetland Preserve. We are, with this alignment, we are avoiding the existing private property line. So that black line that came up along the number 1 is the property line. So we are not having any impacts to private property. We have more opportunities for tree planting here as well. This brown line that came up is the existing walking path that's in the Frog Pond. One of the feedback that we received from the community was not to have any impacts to the existing walking path. And we're able to avoid that as well. And not just avoid it, but we provide a connection from the switchback down to the walking trail so people can come along Fortag, either walking or riding their bike and then parking their bike, and then they can walk into the Frog Pond to the existing trail. And then, as I mentioned, the sidewalk that goes up to City Hall. So existing, as you can see here, for people to try to get across here, essentially you just have to cross State Route 218 along the roadway surface. Our original plan was a more box-like structure, and our current plan, based on feedback from the community, is to make it more open with the laid-back sidewalls. And here's a close-up look at that. So you can see we have some bike parking as well. Along the light post, you might be able to see that there is a closed circuit TV camera that we're proposing, lighting that goes through here, and definitely more open, welcoming feeling with better sight lines through here. And then this is just a view of the green line going through here is the boundary of the Frog Pond Wetland Preserve. And as you can see, our project is just in this small corner here. It's currently an unused portion of the Wetland Preserve that is with blackberry bramble. So it's not even an accessible portion right now. But as you can see, the small footprint that our project would have going into the preserve. And then looking back from the switchback, this is looking back towards the underpass at State Route 218. You can see the walking path that I mentioned that leads into the existing trails here off of the switchback. And then this switchback itself would be, of course, ADA accessible. So be navigable by all members of our community. And then the final piece is along Carlton Drive and then up Plumas. We did have a number of feedback that we received from residents in this area. What you're seeing here is at the intersection of Carlton and State Route 218. We were able to implement some traffic calming in this area to reduce vehicle speeds. We took this user space where we had some difficulty. There is a slope going up here of how we can make this ADA accessible. And I'll have a close-up of this that you'll be able to see that we're able to install not just stairs that go up this, but also ramps that move around to allow people with mobility challenges to navigate this area. And then we also put in some seating nodes as well, so people can come in and rest in this area. A separate option for bicycles to not have to go through the parklet area. And then here's what you can see for a close-up of this. So you can see that there's stairs along the backside that people can either walk up, or you can take the ramps as well to bring you up here. And then this gets back up to the remaining portion of the trail. Some of the key things that we had heard from residents in this area was about slowing down traffic, adding back some existing parking on the east side, removing the parking bumpers that are out there now, and moving the trail away from the properties along Sauceda. So we were able to accommodate all of those feedback that we had received. And as you can see here, there's one area where we were able to add back some parking that had been lost. we're able to protect the existing trees that are along this greenbelt area, and move the trail further away from those backyard fences. So here's just a recap of the 9 large improvements that I just went through. In our project website is fortag-canyondelray.com, where all this information is stored. And if I just have a couple more minutes, I'd like to bring up a visual simulation that we've had completed that shows all these great improvements. And thank you. That's my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was a really great presentation, and appreciate all the work that has been put into this. I would assume that we have some questions and comments, and I'd like to start with the mayor of Delray Oaks, Allison Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that Mike and the TAMC team have been creative. They've been thoughtful. They have been very responsive to the community. And boy, did they exhibit grace under fire. We're looking forward to the 8th and having the final decision to put this amazing path through our city. This project translates a grand vision to safety and health features that will benefit not only Delray Oaks, but also the region. I cannot thank the team enough for all of the hard work. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Kerr. That was wonderful. Now, is there anyone else who would like to comment? If you would please raise your hand. You can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourselves. Eloise, I'm not seeing anyone else. Are you seeing anyone?
That's a negative, Chair.
Okay, okay. Well, I'll just weigh in and just say again, thank you. And I'm sure that people are looking forward to this. I see Larry Samuels has raised his hand.
Thank you, Supervisor Adams. On behalf of CSUMB, we continue to be extraordinarily enthusiastic about this project. We have adopted the Fortag Trail Network as one of our primary means to allow students to access campus from East Campus housing. And going forward, we will continue to support all efforts in this regard, including any of the future development of the university.
Thank you, Dr. Samuels. That was wonderful. Very happy to have your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make comment today? Mr. Smith, you look like you're about to speak. Okay, good. All right. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So we'll go out to the public. And if we see anyone from the public who would like to make comment this morning on this item. Eloise, I'm not seeing anyone. Are you seeing anyone?
Negative, Chair.
Okay. Okay, with that, then we will close the public comment. And I'm very happy. I don't think that we need to have a motion for this since it's an update. So we will be able to just move along unless my colleague, Mr. Muck, has a different thought in mind.
No, that's correct. It's just to receive a presentation.
Great. Okay, thank you so much for that. With that, we will move on now to item number 5. And we will now receive a presentation and provide feedback on a very important project to us, the US 101 South of Salinas project. And I think that we have Doug, who is going to be doing the presentation today.
Good morning, Chair and TAMC board members. I'm Doug Bilsey. I'm the principal engineer for TAMC staff. And we're here. I'm going to manage expectations because I don't have the visuals that you just saw. That was pretty spectacular. So I hope you can, let's see. See my presentation. Great. So we're here this morning to give you an update on the US 101 South of Salinas project. And these horrendous collisions that you're seeing in front of you are the result of the situation right now where we have uncontrolled access to off of 101 at intersections along this section between Salinas and Chular. So what we're looking at is how can we address these issues? And this is the study area we're basically looking at along 101. We did similar to the Fortag project. We did extensive public input and feedback. We held a virtual town hall meeting, and we also did an interactive project map. And stakeholders and community members gave us great input. So what they said to us was they were not interested in new bypass or in interchanges or flyover structures between the existing interchanges at Abbott and Chular. And that was because of the potential takings of agricultural fields and the impacts to local businesses. So although it'd be nice to have interchanges and flyovers and ability to get across 101 from one farm to the other, the area there is very sensitive to maintaining the access or maintaining the ag land. The Abbott Street interchange is just unsafe, and we'll get into that detail. And the Main Street interchange in Chular is inadequate. So we need to build frontage roads adjacent to the US 101 corridor. We want to keep them close to 101 corridor. And we need to improve these interchanges, construct the frontage roads before we prohibit the movements or limit access. And then we need to fix the flooding issues caused by the Old Stage Road in US 101. So this is what we heard from the community members. I'm going to go in and give you some idea.
Doug, we're still seeing,
Doug?
yeah, we're not seeing the presentation moving.
Yeah, it looks like it's frozen, Doug.
Or it's not in the slide, from current slide and start showing the slides.
Let's see. Can you see? Let's see. Can you see that?
we're seeing the draft. So go to from current slide. Second one down, second icon.
I can't, there we go.
Yeah, so it's you want the transition, you want the show to, there you go, from current slide.
But without the notes, right?
Without the notes.
Is that working?
That's working now.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Excellent.
Okay. I think everything else was just words. So now we got to the picture. So nothing lost to this point. So the primary movements are coming from the north area, origins all over. And a lot of the truck travel wants to make left turns onto the east side to the farms and the businesses, ag businesses here. They also want to make right turns across the railroad tracks. And if we were just to simply come in and blockade the, put a median down the center of 101 and block all these trips, what would happen is that trips would take Alice Al and Old Stage Road. And what we heard from the community is that's just not acceptable because there's so many problems with Old Stage Road and Alice Al, and we wouldn't address the problems at Abbott Street and at Chular. So instead, we wiped the slate clean. We went through that public outreach, and what we've come up with, and we want to share with you this morning, is the idea that we construct a full access interchange at Abbott Street. Again, we'll go into detail what that means, and upgrade the interchange at Main Street in Chular, build a frontage road on the east side with direct access to the farms and businesses there, build a frontage road on the east side of 101 with access that's, and this frontage road would be on the west of the railroad tracks. So there would be no longer crossings of the railroad tracks. And then we would put up a median barrier or some structure to stop the left turns in and out of the side streets. So let's take a look at Abbott Street interchange. For those of you that aren't familiar, this is looking north and Salinas is up here to the top of the screen. And what you have now is a very unsafe and non-standard approach where you exit 101 to the median, to the center. And so you have high speed that's in this number one lane, and you have the high speed, and you have these slow cars getting off and slowing down to make the exit. Same way with the entrance. You come in through the median, and you unexpected drivers that have been driving 101 all of a sudden see a merge to their left. This is not standard and not recommended. And again, the speed differential is very bad because you have faster moving vehicles coming in with cars that are coming up to speed. So the one entrance here that's existing is okay. It doesn't really access much than the farmland right here. So the other problems with this interchange is there is no way to get across from one side to the other, and there is no exit going southbound on 101. So again, we start over from scratch, and what we'd like to do is make a full interchange. Now, we have visual simulations, but at this point, there's so many different ways that this can be built. I think it's very important not to give you too much specificity on what it could look like, but just show you what our goal is. And that is to have a full access, which means, an exit, an entrance in each direction, and a crossover. It could be a fly under, it could be a fly over, grade separated definitely, so that there's no more conflicts. And on this side, we would build the frontage road. Again, it'd be on the west side of the railroad tracks and connect to Abbott Street, which is over here. And likewise, on the east side, we would have a frontage road. And this is just at a 30,000 foot level look. This road could take many different forms each way. So we don't want to get into the details at this point, but that's the conceptual idea of what would go on in Abbott Street. Now down at Main Street in Chular, we have somewhat of a non-standard interchange here, in that you northbound, you can get off at Grant Street, and then you go right on to the downtown, and then to get back on the freeway, it's on the north side of the street, which is not standard. You don't have the full interchange here, and we're not proposing that. The exit going southbound and the entrance going southbound somewhat more familiar with the ramps with an overpass to connect to the city. Now, when we go and extend that frontage road on each side, our concern is that we don't unnecessarily impact the community. So the Chulard community is very important to us on this project, and we make sure that the diverted trips, which are mostly, truck trips, agricultural trips, it's not the volume, but it's the size of the vehicles and what they might do. We need to redesign this interchange. And I think it's going to come down to what we can do with these intersections. If we can do those with a roundabout or a signal improvement and avoid an expensive reconstruction of this overpass, that would save us a lot of money. But again, if it's going to impact the community, we have to make sure we take a look at that. So again, this is kind of a vague 30,000 foot level look at this without details on what it might look like, but what the scope that we're going to be looking at going forward. So the storm and the flooding, pretty simple diagram. When it rains, the water from the mountains want to go down to the Salinas River. And there's two basically dams that get in the way, and that's Old Stage Road and US 101. So while we're doing this, we want to look at the hydrology of that. Now, some ideas, the old way to do it is just build tunnels underneath 101 and put the channel that water. Another one is to capture the water. So some ideas that we're looking at is, how can we capture and reuse this water and work with the ag industry to see what can best meet their needs. So now, where are we at on this project? In 2003, we did what's called a project study report, and we assessed the needs, we developed concepts. Those included a bypass. And then with this public outreach that we did, we realized we needed to go back. We really didn't quite go back to square one, but reassessed our needs. And when we developed these new concepts that I just shared with you. So the PSR is still intact. We have an approved document. We've done some revisions, and our scope going forward, we feel is clear from what we presented. And that's what we want to make sure that everyone's on board. So today, we are right there where we've developed the concepts, and we're ready to go into the environmental review and the project design and phasing. That's where we can start working with the details, where we get the pretty pictures and we can look at the diagrams in detail. But I don't want to tell you that we're that far along. That this environmental review process and the design is a lengthy process. They're done concurrently and they work on each other. So as we're designing, we look at the environmental impacts. It goes back and forth until we get to a settlement on that. And then we go to the right of way and we get the permits that are required. And then we all get to where we all want to be, and then we construct the project. So all along this, we're going to have public input and feedback, and we're going to be looking at securing funding, and we're going to implement solutions. And let's take a look at what we've been doing. So we haven't just been waiting for this project to get to construction with the interchanges. We've actually been working with our other team members, CHP, the county, Caltrans, and there's just a picture of a typical problem. Even though we have these no left turn signs that were installed in 2019, trucks still do it. It's only, those signs are only as good as the people that adhere to them, and it has helped quite a bit. It hasn't resolved the problem, but that was thanks to the CHP and Caltrans for doing that. Speed limits have been established on the side streets up by Old Stage Road, and that was done by the county. So we really appreciate that. The community was very thankful that there's now speed limits along some of the streets there. We are about to look at a auxiliary lane at Spence to Eckhart. I'll show that. But right now, when you get when you're entering the 101 from Spence, you have to get up to speed fairly quickly, and then that lane stops. And at the same time, the traffic that's trying to exit northbound on 101 at Eckhart has a short deceleration lane. So what we're going to do is extend that to make it one extra lane, basically an auxiliary lane, a straight lane on 101 between Spence and Eckhart. I have a picture of that to show you. The next. And then we're going to be looking, this is where TAMC is going to be looking at early project phases to address the safety issues. So even when we get to that project phase, that's a lot to do, and we have to be looking at phasing and looking at opportunities to eliminate these conflict points as we go. So this auxiliary lane is going to be going to construction, scheduled to be going into construction next year, is you're looking at the stretch right between this truck just got on the freeway or the expressway on 101 at Spence, and it's going northbound, and it's going to have to merge fairly quickly, get up to speed and merge, while these cars are going to exit at Eckhart. And so this is going to be a continuation of this lane. So it'll go all the way to Eckhart, and then Eckhart will have a acceleration lane. And so that work's going to be starting next year. So in conclusion, how do we get rid of these horrific collisions in the future? We're looking at no new interchanges or flyover structures between the existing interchanges. We're reconstructing Abbott Street interchange. We're upgrading the interchange of Main Street. We're going to build frontage roads adjacent to US 101. We're not going to go far out on Old Stage Road. Community wasn't in support of that. Upgrade the interchanges and the frontage roads first before we do any movement blockades, and then fix the flooding issues and look for early wins. So this is basically our plans going forward. And we want to share that with you, make sure we're all on the same page and going in the right direction, because as I showed you, the environmental and the design, it's all contingent on us buying into this. And if we go back and change this, we're going to be starting all over again. So it's really important that we're there. There's no action that's being asked from the TAMC board today, but we want to make sure that you understand where the project is planning to go. So with that, I can answer questions or allow some discussion.
Thank you very much, Doug, for the presentation. This really is a very serious and important part of what it is that we've all been looking at for safety in our county. So let me go to the board and see if there's any member of the board that would like to ask questions or make comments. And if you don't mind raising your hand, please, by pressing *9, and then unmuting yourself by pressing *6. And yes, we have Supervisor Chris Lopez.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. Just thank you to staff. I know the presentation was a little rudimentary, but the work that's gone in over the last couple of years has been incredible. Just the quantity and the quality of what's been able to be accomplished, and the conversations continue to be driven by community. I think that's critically important. You know, the way that this issue bubbled up and continues to be driven through the offices of our partner electeds all the way up through the federal government is important, in that it shows we have community buy-in. I know that there was a little bit of pushback at one point, but to say it was minor is an understatement. It was extremely small. Everybody understands that this issue needs to be solved. Nobody questioned that. Everybody was looking for the solutions and wanted to understand what the impacts might be to them. There's a few other issues that were outlined in terms of the frontage roads with, you know, locations of wells and some of those challenges, but I didn't have a single person tell me that seems like something we can't get around. Everybody said, we'll figure that out. Let's keep going. And I think that that's really important. And so I know that we're heading into the summer months, which means more cars on the road. You know, and folks are driving a little differently given the gas situation, the price of gas at this point. You know, I noticed yesterday the average speed on 101 dropped by about 5 miles an hour, which isn't a bad thing. So I was a little appreciative of those high gas prices yesterday for that reason. But the challenges that we continue to face at that interchange will be there until we can get the larger solution put in place and make sure that those impacts, as Doug pointed out, to the community of Chular aren't major. I know that interchange, in particular the bridge crossing 101, has some major challenges just in the degree and angle that some of those 18-wheelers need to make. And so appreciate the continued work. Know that we still have some challenges in front of us, but appreciate the fact that we're working hand in hand with the community and making sure that these solutions come forward as quickly as possible, because one more life lost in that stretch is one too many. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Lopez. And now we will go to Mayor Labar.
Thank you, Chair. Supervisor Lopez said it very well. These improvements for South County are crucial. And it being such an ag corridor, obviously we want to make that as safe as possible. I just want to also concur, the community engagement portion of that in this project has been so crucial. And I very much appreciate looking at real solutions. But anything that we can do to move these things quicker, it really is about lives. Every year sooner is that many lives that can be saved and are horrific accidents. So anything we can do to help elicit that, any conversations that we can have in our advocation for funding, please let us know, because this is important, very, very important. And last point is South County within Monterey County from AMBAG is projected to grow faster than any other region in Monterey County, 35% increase by 2035. And that means more traffic, more vehicles, miles traveled, and really highlights the importance of getting this done as quick as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment or ask a question on this item? I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we'll go to the public to be sure the public has an opportunity for questions or comments. And I see that we have a hand raised by Norm Groot. Mr. Groot.
Thank you, Chair Adams, and good morning, everyone. Norm Groot for Farm Bureau Monterey. And I, too, want to compliment the tremendous outreach that's been made on this project so far, and particularly the availability, excuse me, of Mr. Bilsey to answer questions and take suggestions and talk through some of the issues related to not only the interchanges, but in general, the project itself. There is tremendous interest in improving this particular section of the highway, and I think we all realize why. But I think the comment I would make here too is that, let's not piecemeal this project and extend the project over a decade in getting it done. We need to get this done as soon as possible. And so when we look at this and start looking at the concepts, we need to look at it as an entire project and really make sure that we're fulfilling the need for safety in this corridor. So we remain and will remain engaged in this project as it moves forward, and look forward to seeing the concepts and helping to guide the prospects of moving this forward. So thank you for the presentation. Very well done, and look forward to seeing how fast we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. And next we have Jane. There we go.
Hi, I'm Janie Smith, and one of the founding members of the Traffic Safety Alliance. And I just wanted to echo what's been shared already and really thank Doug and TAMC and Caltrans and all, Supervisor Lopez and all of you for continuing to support the movement towards, traffic safety and really figuring out solutions that work for everybody and that take into consideration, everybody's needs across the region. And so anything that we can continue to do to help with the public outreach or, help to get letters of support or anything so that we can, move this up. We want to continue to be partners in the project. So thank you again. Really appreciate everything that everybody's done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments. And one of the things that I really, really like about the approach that TAMC has taken on this project is that continued community input piece and the willingness to pivot when it looks like it might be something that the community has a different approach. And I really value that. Todd, comments?
Yes, I just wanted to announce that we got word yesterday that Congressman Panetta has supported this project with a $1 million community project funding request nomination, where he is nominating this project for an earmark. And I was debating whether to bring it up here or save it for my executive director report, but didn't want to confuse this presentation. This is specifically for the auxiliary lane project that's going to be starting soon and go into construction. And it will allow us to focus our Measure X funds on the bigger project in the future. So we're really appreciative of it getting nominated, and hopefully it makes it all the way through the federal process.
Thank you so much for your comment, Todd. And my expectation is that that auxiliary lane will really do something to help the safety element on the south of the 101 as we continue to work through for the rest of the project.
It's one of the early fixes that we can do right now as we're going through all the hard work on the design and environmental for the bigger project.
Great, good. Thank you for that. Supervisor Alejo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to weigh in and really recognize the leadership of Supervisor Lopez and all the stakeholders that have worked on this for quite some time. Every now and then, I know, we're seeing continued accidents there. I know last March there was a big rig doing an illegal U-turn, and 3 children and the adult were hurt and hospitalized because of that. And every time we see an accident, it's a reminder of why this work is so important. For many decades, the priority was on the North County Prunedale area that was called Blood Alley at one point, with a lot of accidents. And now it's we need to prioritize to make sure that we're doing all the safety measures to improve 101 south of Salinas. So I just want to express it. I know this needs to be a priority. And as Norm Groot said, we hope that the resources and the attention will help speed this up along faster, not to wait for more accidents to happen along that stretch, when we could do a lot to prevent accidents and save lives. With that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Alejo. Is there any other member of the board that wishes to make comment today? Okay, we were out to the public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to make comment? And always, I'll look to your good eyes. I'm not seeing anyone.
That's a negative, Chair.
Okay, great. All right. So with that, again, I know that we don't need to have a motion, but is there any other information that that staff needs from the board at this point? See Doug saying no. Okay, well, great. Thank you again for the super report. And we will we'll close the item and look forward to the next update on this. With that, we will open item number 6 to receive a presentation on recent efforts to align state and local transportation fundings with the state climate action, equity, and vehicle miles traveled reduction goals. And that is also going to be presented by Mike Zeller. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again, Chair Adams. Be presenting on the current efforts at the state to align state transportation funding with climate action goals, as well as social equity and sustainability and health goals. We've done a couple of presentations to the board about the state's climate action plan for transportation investments. Previously, the efforts at the state level are starting to pick up, and the proverbial rubber is starting to hit the road a bit as this is moving along. So I just wanted to bring this back to the board to let you know about some of the recent developments that are going on, as well as how TAMC staff is working with our regional partners, as well as Caltrans, to collaboratively try to move forward in a positive way to keep our regional priority projects moving and make sure that they remain eligible for state funding, as well as still meeting the state goals. The background on this is the state climate action plan for transportation investments or transportation infrastructure. This was a plan that was adopted by the California State Transportation Agency in July of 2021. The plan came out of building on executive orders from Governor Newsom that were enacted in 2019 and 2020 around targeting reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector to help the state meet its ambitious climate goals. The reason behind this is that the transportation sector accounts for over 40% of polluting emissions in the state. So it's where a lot of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the state. So targeting transportation was of key importance for helping the state meet its climate goals. And under the Climate Action Plan, it's referred to as this acronym of CAPTI, the framework under CAPTI looks at identifying where it's feasible and within existing funding programs. The state's excuse me, the state's intent is to invest transportation funds in sustainable infrastructure projects that align with state climate, health, and social equity goals. Some of the examples of the strategies that are in CAPTI look at investments in rail, transit, and active transportation. So moving more away from, not necessarily moving away from vehicle transportation, but looking at ways to support more multimodal transportation options. Providing more support for equity and environmental justice outreach to ensure that we're reaching out to typically underserved communities to make sure that their transportation needs are also being met. As I mentioned, a focus on multimodal corridors. So as you can see here, a typical kind of a highway corridor with proposed bus rapid transit and the bike and pedestrian coastal trail. Support for zero emission freight, so moving goods movement and freight towards zero emission. Providing support for climate risk and resiliency analysis, so looking at ways to make our transportation infrastructure more resilient and adaptable to the impacts from climate change. And then really a focus on vehicle miles traveled, reducing types of projects. So moving away from typical congestion relief types of projects and focusing more on vehicle miles traveled, as well as transitioning away from funding projects through the gas tax and looking more at a road user charge. And then finally, a focus on land use connections. So things that we are already doing at looking at where people live, work, go to school, and how they move around, but trying to better integrate transportation with land use decisions. So before I get into too far into some of the efforts that are going on, I wanted to touch a bit about our regional plans and consistency with the state goals. There is a bit of, there is some requirements already that we do adhere to, and that do help us already with complying with state goals. Key among those is Senate Bill 375, which I'm sure you're familiar with. This was enacted in 2008, which requires metropolitan planning organizations to prepare a sustainable community strategy that again looks at land use patterns and transportation investments to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The State Air Resources Board provides each region with a greenhouse gas emissions target that they're required to meet through the Sustainable Community Strategy. And in our area, we work with the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments as our MPO. They are required to produce the Sustainable Community Strategy. We work with the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission, as well as the San Benito Council of Governments, the RTPA's regional transportation planning agencies for our neighboring counties with AMBAG to prepare our long-range regional transportation plan, where we set up a series of policies and goals, as well as a program of projects that filter up into the larger metropolitan transportation plan and sustainable community strategy. And that larger program of projects is what is analyzed to help us meet our regional greenhouse gas emissions targets. So at the current level, the overall program from our regional transportation plan, as well as our short range 5-year regional transportation improvement program, those do maintain consistency with our greenhouse gas emissions targets and overall state goals. As I'll touch on it a bit later in the presentation, there's discussions around changing the emphasis from looking at overall program of projects, but looking at individual projects specifically. But just wanted to talk about things that we're doing currently in our regional plans to make sure that we're staying consistent with state targets and state goals. Our regional transportation plan for 2022 will be coming back to the board next month for adoption. We did have a presentation on this at the January meeting, so we'll have more information at next month's meeting on our RTP. But some of the anticipated impacts to Monterey County from CAPTI, some of them are good. Some of them are very good. So looking at climate impact mitigation and planning, providing more of an emphasis on ways that we can transition our transportation network to be more resilient, as well as to take into account the impacts of climate change and incorporate impact mitigation and planning into our processes. It recommends providing more funding towards the active transportation program, the state's active transportation program. We've been very successful in getting grant funds for. As I mentioned, our FORTAG project earlier received $10 million from this program. Our region has been very successful in bringing in programs, funding for our projects. But the state active transportation program is very oversubscribed. There is lots of, it's a very highly competitive program that is never able to fully fund all of the grant applications that it receives. So there's been discussions about using some of the current budget surplus to fund some of those projects and clear out that backlog to provide additional funding to more active transportation types of projects. And CAPTI also has support for investments in bus rapid transit and rail solutions. So this will certainly benefit our MST SURF project, as well as our rail extension to Monterey County projects. But there are some areas of concern. One, the first being support for lack of support for critical highway safety and congestion relief projects. As I mentioned, CAPTI does focus more on vehicle miles traveled, reducing types of projects. And many of the highway safety and congestion projects in rural settings don't necessarily reduce VMT, but they're still critical for improved safety and goods movements. And one of the Measure X projects that we talked about, the US 101 south of Salinas project, it's not necessarily clear at this stage how funding for interchanges or frontage road projects like this would be competitive under future Senate Bill 1 grant programs. Even if their goal is safety for all road users. As I'll talk about how we're working with Caltrans, wanting to make sure that these types of projects are maintain eligibility and competitiveness for future state grant funding. Another area of concern is a need for a geographically sensitive approach. Basically things that are going to work in an urban setting for vehicle miles traveled, reducing types of projects aren't necessarily going to work in a rural setting. So we just wanted to make sure that we're maintaining regional flexibility to achieving a balanced transportation system that's reflective of the needs of our community. And one of the strategies identified in CAPTI is to promote projects that do not increase passenger vehicle travel. But this strategy fails to acknowledge that there's small urban and rural areas that we still need to plan, fund, and build projects that address safety and goods movement. So I want to make sure that those types of projects still are able to move forward in the future. Another area of concern is the narrow approach to sustainable mobility. As I mentioned, again, CAPTI is focused on VMT reducing types of projects, but things like a roundabout type of projects do reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but maybe don't necessarily reduce VMT. So how do we find that balance that we're able to move forward with innovative solutions? An example is the State Route 156 Castroville Boulevard project, which is projected to save almost 3.5 tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually. So being able to put in a series of roundabouts for that project actually is good for the environment, but doesn't necessarily reduce VMT. Also wanting to make sure that we're looking at multimodal solutions, such as growing the electric vehicle charging network, enhancing travel demand management programs. Those types of things can also have strong GHG greenhouse gas emissions reductions that aren't necessarily reflected in reduction in vehicle miles traveled. And then finally, probably the most important area of concern is risk to voter approved funding commitments. So with Measure X, we've listed out a series of regional improvement projects that we made a commitment to the voters of Monterey County that we're going to deliver. But one of the key goals was to be able to leverage state funding to be able to deliver on those projects, and just wanting to make sure that we are continuing to make sure that the scenic State Route 68, the US 101 south of Salinas, the State Route 156, all of those projects are maintain competitiveness in this new environment moving forward. So before I touch on how we're working collaboratively and positively with Caltrans to move forward, just wanted to touch on one more aspect, and this was the Assembly Bill 285 report. So this was a piece of legislation that was enacted in 2019, and it requires the State Strategic Growth Council to submit a report to the state legislature with an evaluation of the California transportation plan, as well as all the regional transportation plans and sustainable community strategies, and how they adhere towards, not necessarily adhere towards, but how they help the state move towards attaining climate goals. There's been some discussion about how the analysis in this report was conducted amongst the regional transportation planning agencies, and looking at perhaps doing a reevaluation, but I think kind of the overarching themes that came out of the report, the recommendations are not likely to change. And they do kind of run consistent with the recommendations that came out of CAPTI as well. And again, so looking back at aligning funding with state goals, going a bit further and aligning regional plans with state goals. And then also taking it a step further from that is not just looking at future projects, but looking at our current projects that are in development and reevaluating whether or not those projects meet state goals, and whether we need, there's any recommendations that projects need to be reimagined that are currently in the development pipeline. So as I mentioned, we are at a staff level working collaboratively with Caltrans. We also, the board did approve a contract with Point C, our corridor advisor, to help us review our projects and figure out a way to kind of tell the story about our projects, about how they are consistent with state goals. So looking at things like saying, as I mentioned with State Route 156 in Castroville, that we're doing an interchange project there that perfectly encapsulates what we're doing, but it doesn't cover everything that we're doing. You know, putting in a bike and pedestrian connection from the Castroville overcrossing to North County High, providing safe local access to a low-income community, providing greenhouse gas emissions, reducing transportation improvement, providing better transit access with the project as well. So being able to kind of tell the whole story of what we're doing with our projects, that's what we're working with Caltrans right now to be able to, excuse me, make sure that our projects are accurately being reflected as to how they're helping the state meet their goals, and then get us ready for the next round of state Senate Bill 1 grant programs that'll be coming up. The current grant cycle 3 that we're in right now is going to be a 2-year cycle. So our projects will likely be ready for cycle 4. So what we're working on right now is trying to get our projects positioned to be competitive for that cycle 4 grant program coming up. One last thing that I wanted to touch on is coming out of the Senate bill, the Assembly Bill 285 report that I mentioned. There was 2 pieces of legislation that were built off of that report. The board has already taken an opposed position on these 2 pieces of legislation. The first being 2237. And this bill would require the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan, so that's our short range 5-year program of projects, to be consistent with the state climate goals. There's already a requirement in the guidelines for this document to have a discussion about consistency with our sustainable community strategy and how we're meeting our regional greenhouse gas emissions targets. So we are already doing that, but this legislation takes it a step further and says that the State Air Resources Board would then further prohibit any regional agency from funding inconsistent projects or programs. So as I mentioned, kind of looking not at our overall program projects and how we're meeting the state goals, but looking at individual projects and perhaps pulling those out and saying this one doesn't appear consistent, we're not going to allow you to fund it. This bill would also require the California Transportation Commission, in consultation with the Air Resources Board, to propose recommendations on local tax measures like our Measure X, propose recommendations of how our tax measures can be aligned with the state's climate action goals. So really kind of going more into local control of our local funds that we're developing. And then Assembly Bill 2438. So this is the one that would essentially take all of the funding that's administered by the state and make sure that it's in alignment with the California Transportation Plan and state climate action goals. So kind of taking the recommendations from CAPTI for aligning state funding with state climate goals and putting it into legislation. But this would, again, really restricts the ability, perhaps restrict the ability on project development and project delivery, where we have had discretion in the past, like with our state transportation improvement program funding, on programming it towards projects of regional priority and giving the state more in a hand in how those projects are chosen and delivered. And then finally, just kind of wanted to bring this back to full circle from what we were discussing earlier about regional alignment and our program of regional projects. As you can see, we have quite a bit of balance in our regional program of projects with the rail extension, regional bike and pedestrian projects. We have regional bus rapid transit corridors, as well as safety and congestion relief types of projects that and goods movement projects that are really needed in our region to be able to help people get around and do it in a safe manner. And we're moving forward and doing things in most environmentally sensitive ways as we can with these projects as well. So looking at, again, just the overall balance of projects that we have is in alignment with state goals. But the concern then is if you start to pick out any one of these projects individually, being able to still tell the story of how we're meeting goals. And that's kind of what we're working with Caltrans on right now. So that's kind of the context of things that are discussions that are going on with the state. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Mike. And it sounds like there are some concerns, some serious concerns about the future funding opportunities. And I hope there's something that we can do now to plan for the changes and produce and the potential reduction in our state funding. Mayor Labar, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a couple points. The state is really focusing on VMT as a emission reduction tool, and also very much encouraging the use of electric vehicles. And they kind of conflict with each other in the sense that the more electric vehicles we have, VMTs really matter less and less. The one thing I would like TAMC to consider is, as they're talking with our state partners and our lobbyists, is so there's going to be a state average of electric vehicles. And for example, if our county was above that average, that should be able to be used as a credit towards our VMT reductions goals and balance that incentive, right? So more electric vehicles within Monterey County. We don't really need as many VMT reductions. And it should be something that's factored in when they're looking at grants and funding. And then lastly, I definitely encourage to let our lobbyists know that as more electric vehicles do come online over the years and VMT as a tool is less and less needed, that be a recognition that there'd be a phase out of the VMT requirements if they're starting now. Because a lot of these projects are going to be 5-10 years in the future. And I'm not seeing any information in these types of reports regarding electric vehicle usage now and what is projected as these programs go forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Labar. Chaps Bedori. Your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I had just a general question, Mike or TAMC in general. The CAPTI, does that allow us as a regional board to develop a climate action plan at a regional level? And further, does that allow cities, will it allow funding for cities to develop their own climate action plans?
The focus from CAPTI is more on the state's climate action goals. So there's certainly no restriction on developing regional or localized climate action plans. But this is really more towards how those plans would help the state meet their goals. So it doesn't call out necessarily funding for regional or localized plans, but more how the state can use the funds that it has at its discretion to transition the transportation investments towards meeting state goals.
So in other words, it needs to be project oriented than plan oriented. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pedori. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment or ask a question at this point? Okay, my expectation is that we're working with the Central Coast Coalition to address the concerns at the state level. That's great. You know, it's really difficult because I can appreciate where the state is going, because if you focus on those big areas, which is clearly what this is doing, on the major transportation hubs, that's how you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck in a way. But to the detriment of the rest of us, I think that's really pretty difficult. Todd.
Thank you. Yes, we are working with the Central Coast Coalition and the Rural Counties Task Force and the RTPA group, which is the Regional Transportation Planning Agency group. All of the agencies, Self-Help Counties Coalition also is very active in how this impacts counties with local sales tax measures. So CalCog is also actively involved. So we are working with all of our local partners and trying to get some traction. And I think the biggest issue is the understanding that one size does not fit all across the state. And as a rural county and other parts of the state need to be treated differently, and the way this is applied should be more specific to each region's needs and how we can help meet the state goals than just off at the top down how projects move forward. It will be extremely detrimental to our ability to deliver projects if projects are ranked and funding gets allocated by ranking purely on these criterias. Projects move forward at different levels, just trying to get through the environmental process, the design process, the community discussions about projects. They take time. The timeline is not linear, and if we have one more criteria for how projects move forward, it just makes it that much harder. So we really do need to continue to work with our legislators and to increase the understanding that local control is the way to handle this, and we can be working towards the state goals. We just need the flexibility to do it at our level.
Thank you so much for that. And I know that we'll continue the outreach to our state elected officials so that they are on point with us. Got it. Any other members of the board who wish to make comment at this point on this item? Okay, is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? I see no one. Eloise, how about you?
That's a negative, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, and with that, I think our recommended action is simply to receive the presentation. So thank you all very much for your input on this as we look to reimagining the current plans that we have at this point. Whenever you want the board's engagement with that, I'm sure that'll be an interesting opportunity. So thank you, and now we will move on to item number 7. and we will receive the reports from the transportation providers. And we will start off with Caltrans, their reports and project updates.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. John Olenek from Caltrans District 5. And right now, I'm the Acting Deputy District Director for District 5. Scott Eads, our deputy, has taken a special assignment, short-term, to be our headquarters SB1 Program Manager. So for the next 6 to 8 weeks, or give or take foreseeable future, I'll be here representing the district and glad to be working with you all again today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So just I'll have a few brief comments to share, and apologize if there's any background noise. I found myself in a spot in our Salinas maintenance yard today, and they're having a very lively safety meeting next door. So it sounds a little bit like a rodeo going on, but hopefully I'm coming through okay.
You're in the right place for that too.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just wanted to mention a couple of things that are recently in the news. Things going on at the statewide level that recently the governor has announced and brought out information about his May budget revision, and just some interesting and I guess exciting thing to think about that. That also includes an additional $500 million toward the active transportation program. So when we think of, have thought of ATP in the past, it has had lots of constraints. It's finding itself coming forward with the potential of a more infusion of money. So an exciting program, still competitive, but a very exciting announcement to think of that. And that revision also includes an extra $750 million of incentive grants to transit and rail agencies for a variety of things, including the potential for some free transit passes to help. So another item to mention also in the way of investment is recently the state has approved over $700 million to make repairs to our infrastructure. And of those projects, one that was approved was a $7.7 million project here in Monterey County, in Salinas on US 101 between East Market Street and Sherwood Drive to improve the on-ramps, to add sound walls, and to make overall improvements to the situation there. An interesting note I wanted to bring out having to do with broadband middle mile. That's another interesting endeavor, big picture, lots of good things going on in the state, but the State Department of Technology has taken additional steps to move that effort forward. They've actually just recently purchased the fiber and materials to construct 3,000 miles of broadband in the state. So bringing that down to Monterey County, there are going to be broadband installations middle mile throughout the entire state, generally along the highway systems. But for Monterey County, there's going to be over 135 miles potentially of broadband added to some of our highways in Monterey County. And then also wanted to mention things going on with Clean California. Tomorrow actually is Litter Day, May 26th. So you'll here in Monterey County, you're going to see activities and crews on Highway 101 in Greenfield, King City, Salinas, Highway 68, Monterey Highway 1, and across the county line, Highway 101 in San Benito County. Also with Clean California, our dump day that we had April 23rd, it was a huge success. Over $1 billion went toward that across all of our districts, but we got lots of great feedback from the communities being able to provide, to put things out for free dumping for us to help in the Clean California effort. And then the last little bit I was going to offer was just an expression of appreciation to TAMC staff. Recently, some of our newer planning staff was able to come up to Monterey County and do a small tour. And your executive director and I think others were able to show them around, show them the SURF project. We've been able to, over the course of COVID, hire several new young planners, they're doing an excellent job. And we would just appreciate introducing them to our partners, as we all know that our partnership is very important in these times. So that's my report. I really appreciate the time and open to any questions or comments if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And again, it's nice to have you here with us for a bit. Any questions or comments on John's presentation?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Supervisor Leonard.
I know this is a small point, but I know Caltrans statewide is engaging in a lot of the fencing around exit corridors going into different cities, and I think partly driven by some of the homeless encampments. And chain link fences look good when they're new, but over time they don't keep up very well because they look like a temporary construction taking place. And so just as a suggestion, I know it's a small point, but sometimes getting that black chain link fence, especially in the entrances to different communities in this region, I know right off the South Salinas exit in Salinas, South Salinas exit, obviously in Salinas, a lot of fencing went up there, but I just know that in time, it might not keep up as well. And then, just for the aesthetics in the community, it doesn't cost very much more. And in the long run, it will achieve its purpose, but also look much nicer. So just a small suggestion for Caltrans. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member who wishes to speak at this time? Okay, terrific. Is there any member of the public? I'm seeing no one out there. So with that, we will move forward and we will go to the Monterey Peninsula Airport. Mr. Zabo.
I believe Mr. Sabo is not able to be with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Then we will go directly to the Monterey Salinas Transit. And I'm not sure who we have with MST today. My hope is, there we go. It's Lisa. Hi.
It's Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Lisa Reinheimer for MST. And I have 3 things I wanted to report. I believe Carl already mentioned 2 of them, but I'm going to reiterate that we have a bus fare survey that we're currently conducting via Slido. It should close next week. We've gotten a really great response so far with a lot of support for consolidating our existing slightly confusing routes into a single fare of $2 for 2 hours for a regular passenger. So if you have anybody that you know that would like to take the Slido survey, please feel free to send the information their way. And then also the trolleys, the Monterey trolleys coming back starting on June 25th through September 5th during the peak travel season. So we're happy to continue our relationship with the city of Monterey to pay for that service. And then finally, I wanted to report that towards the end of June, starting June 20th-ish, we'll be doing some additional public outreach on the Surf Busway and Bus Rapid Transit project. And we'll get information out to you once that's finalized and give you ample opportunity to come out and take a look at things and provide comments on a website and what have you. So that's all I had to report. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions? I'm seeing no hands. Any questions of the public? I'm seeing no hands there either. Okay, with that, we will move forward to the Monterey Bay Air Resources District. And I don't know if we have Mr. Stedman with us today. And Todd, do you know if we have anyone from Monterey Bay Air Resources District with us? And we are not able to hear you, or at least I'm not.
Chair, that's a negative. I didn't see anyone in attendance.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So we have taken board comments and we have asked the public if they are interested in speaking. And so we've received those comments. So with that, we will move forward. We will close item 7 and go to item 8, which is any members that wish to report on meetings that they have attended at transportation agency expense as required by state law. Do we have any members who wish to make comments about any trips or expenses that they have incurred on behalf of TAMC? I'm seeing no hands. Okay, and thank you very much for that. And now we will move forward to item number 9, which is our executive director's report.
Thank you.
Item number 10, excuse me.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, sad news. I want to share that Catherine Hansen, our counsel, is leaving employment with the county as of this Friday. And I want to express my appreciation for her work with TAMC. It's been a pleasure working with her, and it's been an odd year with COVID and remote meetings and all the other things that have been going on. So I wish we had more time to work together and expand our relationship on TAMC projects, but I think she's got some great exciting activities ahead of her, and I'm really excited for her. So want to wish her the best of luck in her future role with the Superior Court in Santa Cruz. And I also wanted to just announce that Susan Blitch is going to be taking over in the interim from the county. She has worked with TAMC in the past, and so we're excited to have her helping out again. And for at least for a while, she'll be helping us out until maybe we transition to a new county council for a more permanent basis. With that, Catherine, do you want to say anything?
Oh, sure. I'd love to. Thank you so much, Todd. First, thank you for the very kind, very gracious words. I really appreciate it. I was sitting here today getting quite sentimental, actually, about this board because I have enjoyed working with all of you so much. And this is one of the hardest parts of leaving my position with the county council's office is leaving TAMC and the great work TAMC is doing. And that includes the work with all of you as incredible leaders of your community. It has been both an exciting process for me to get to know all of you and work with you, and also kind of a mentoring process for me because so many of you have led for so long and do such a great job. So I've learned a tremendous amount from you, and I really thank all of you for that. Just to let you know a bit about what's happening, I am being appointed to be the new Superior Court Commissioner in the Santa Cruz County Superior Court. And I'm thrilled. I can't wait to begin, although it is sad to leave all of you because of this opportunity. I will be sworn in on June 13th, and my courtroom will be in Watsonville. A lot of people, especially TAMC people, have been worried about my commute north, but for the most part, I will be in the Watsonville courthouse. So it's the same amount of time it takes me to get to Salinas. And with that, I just want to briefly introduce Susan as well. She is wonderful. She is our Chief Assistant County Counsel, so you are getting the best. I am amazed that she even has time to take on this assignment, and I think she's doing it because of her respect for TAMC as well, and the great work that she's done with TAMC in the past. So you are being left in exceptionally good hands, and I felt much better once I knew that it will be Susan, because I know how important the work is that TAMC does and board governance is to TAMC. And so I know that this will be a fantastic transition. And I think that's it. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Catherine. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And with that, are there any announcements or comments from transportation agency members on matter that they wish to put on future TAMC agendas? Yes, Supervisor Alejo.
I don't know if it's about future TAMC agenda, but just something to bring to everyone's attention. Santa Cruz County has a measure D that could have serious implications for our regional transportation plans. It would amend the general plan in Santa Cruz County to basically pull out all the rail tracks from, I think it's a 32-mile stretch of rail. And I think TAMC and the RTC, and when I was in the state legislature, we're very involved in getting state money from the State Transportation Commission to be able to purchase that track for the future of clean light rail sometime down the road. This measure would stifle that. And because our plans to extend passenger rail from San Jose to Salinas, the phase 2 of that includes a train station in Pajaro. This would lose that connectivity to have perhaps light rail be able to connect North Santa Cruz County, Mid Santa Cruz County residents to the Pajaro train station to have a more robust passenger rail system throughout the Monterey Bay region. So I know it's on the ballot for June 7th. A lot of money by some wealthy folks have been put on or behind Measure D. But it's just something that I want to bring to the attention because it will have an impact on our future plans that we've been working on for quite some time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Alejo. Okay, and just before we adjourn, I want to give my personal thanks to Catherine as well for the excellent work that you've done. It's been really a lot of fun to work with you, and I hope that our paths will continue to cross. And Susan, welcome aboard. You and I are old hands at this now. So thank you so much to everyone. And if there are no more comments,
I see a
let's
hand
see, I think
raised.
Claudia Lynch.
I see a hand raised.
Yes, Claudia. Claudia Link, your hand is up. And I
Thank you,
don't know
Chair.
if
Can you hear me now?
unmute yourself. Yes,
Can you hear me
we
now?
can. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that tomorrow Caltrans will be hosting a virtual community meeting to talk about State Route 183 Castroville Improvement Project. We would appreciate input from the public, and it is a Zoom meeting. It will be taking place from 6 to 7:30. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you very much for that, Claudia. Much appreciated. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, with that, we will adjourn. I hope you all have an enjoyable Memorial Day, and we'll see you down the road. Bye-bye.